Okay, we're back for video 2. What we're going to cover in this video is the installation of AppFabric. I have made AppFabric download available for 64-bit OSs, and I have that at the FTP you can see here. I also have a much larger file, the Windows Server 2008 R2 x64 Enterprise at 12.3 gig, and that's compressed. Uncompressed, it was right at 40 gig, so the compression rate was great on it. But 12.3 gig, still nothing to scoff at. We're not going to go over extracting it and setting up the server and stuff. Just know it's got AppFabric already installed on it. It's got an Express edition of SQL 12 on it, with AppFabric's monitoring or reporting already pointing at that database. So in a video later, i.e. one that's not due today, I will be covering that as well, and we'll cover that from start to finish. But for the testing and what we want to do today, this will be fine. But the file you are going to want is this AppFabric x74. What you can do is just right click on it and save link as, and it'll come down. Now I've done it in the interest of time, already downloaded it here, so what we're going to do is we're just going to show in the folder, and then we're going to go in here and we're going to run this as administrator. And I'm going to say yes, I want to give it elevated permissions. Okay, so that was my first official use of the pause button on recording. Remember, I promised no edits, but I can pause. I had a pending system restart, popped up a box that said restart, and so I restarted this thing, and now I'm back. I just double-clicked the install again, and this came up after it extracted the documents. Okay, and you know what? And I thought about something, because people are going to ask questions. How am I doing this? I'm actually recording the audios from my home, working from home over Fios, and I use a product called TeamViewer. My wife was nice enough to buy me the commercial version, so I can use it for whatever I want. And so I connect to my PC through TeamViewer, and that's what some of these icons you see on here are. TeamViewer is just awesome. It beats anything else out there hands down, except maybe the Bomgar appliance. But to be honest, I haven't seen anything Bomgar can do that TeamViewer can't. So if you're ever interested in purchasing it, you can go to teamviewer.com, and they have a once-in-a-lifetime payment. You get all the upgrades from then on free. So it's cool. Been using it for a couple of years. Anyway, we're back to the AppFabric 1.1 install. You're just going to say, yes, I accept the terms and sign away my soul to Microsoft. And the customer experience, I never help with that. It's a non-compensated work, and everyone knows how I feel about that. Microsoft update. Because on this machine we have a corporate run Microsoft update, I'm going to go ahead and say use Microsoft update to check. But I honestly don't think it's going to override what's set up on the server. Certainly won't hurt them, but it's not going to override what our sysadmins have done. So I'm going to say next. Okay, now here is where it's interesting, okay, and this is where I want to make you aware of a couple of things. If you are setting up a machine for development only, right, then you are going to install these bottom two and none of these, right? Because all you care about is installing the folders on your machine so you can reference the DLLs and get access to the system.administration or system. Some other namespaces in Visual Studio 10 or 12. I, however, because I'm doing AppFabric on my development machine, I'm going to select everything. But if you're just setting up a development machine for yourself, and let's say you were going to use my virtual server, which I made available, which we'll get to a whole lot later, third time I've said that, you wouldn't need these top two. You wouldn't need them. But I'm going to go ahead and select them all just because I know that this is my desktop setting on my desk in my office, and I should say on Ankita's desk in my office. So I'm going to install everything here. I'm trying to beg, borrow, steal some servers so we can get a proper lab, but haven't quite got there yet. So anyway, I'm going to select them all, hit next, and then it says to install the components, click install. These are the required ones, they're there, and then it's going to install the services and Microsoft Update. Only thing I think may cause trouble is this Microsoft Update. We'll see if the computer really screams at me. I'm just going to hit install, and I'm going to pause here while it installs, but you'll be able to watch it go through. If something notable happens, I will resume. By the way, for timekeeping's sake, the current time is 1:58 p.m. So we'll see how long this actually takes. On video, it's going to be instant. For me, not so much. Okay, so that wasn't near as bad as I thought. It's 2 o'clock now, so you do the math. I've already forgot what time I bookmarked it at earlier. I was doing something else. So we can see we installed an update to the 3.5 framework, 3.5.1. Some management consoles, some runtimes, and everything needs to be here. Microsoft Update, of course, too. Now, it says there's some recommended updates. I'm going to click this and see what they're telling me might be a good idea for me to get. Honestly, I have no clue what it's going to say. Oh, critical Windows updates. Okay, we don't control that. That's scheduled by Dell, so I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. Now it says you can configure a system to use an app server. We're going to configure it, and what we're going to see before we get there is we're going to see it's for logging, for configuration of the app server, AppFabric servers. Remember, they can be in a cluster, so you got to have a common data store. You can use SQL servers or XML configuration files in a network share. I prefer that one, and I'll show you why when we get there. But I think it's going to know that this is Windows 7. It's not going to give us the option to do a cluster. So we're going to go through here, and I'm going to say launch a configuration tool, and we're going to hit finish. Okay, and it said it's going to help us configure it. I don't want to give Microsoft any of my information for free. Happy to sell that to them. Okay, now here's what I was talking about the logs. Now, this is why you need SQL Express, or at least access to a database backend. I like SQL 2012. I don't want to get into a tech discussion here too far, but it's got a new local DB feature, which is awesome. There's a whole bunch of things in SQL 12 that are really neat. I'll probably do a video on that. Why not? So anyway, we're going to go ahead and set it up here, and we're going to set up the monitoring. We're going to configure it here, and it's asking us which account. Ideally, in a domain, you'd create a user account so that we can grant it access to different things, but I'm just going to let it. It's a single machine install. I'm not doing a cluster. I'm going to let it install it there. The only one it supports, you're going to see me click down, is going to be SQL. Wonder why that is. I'm sure that some third-party MySQLs and other things will be there. This is not going to be the configuration of the app server cache, because remember I said AppFabric has several things. It's got session monitoring, it's got other kinds of monitoring, persistence, and these are going to be logs of what AppFabric's doing. So we're going to go in here and check them both. Now I need to and there's, like I said, you could install different providers, perhaps MySQL and some other ones. We're going to go ahead and configure it. And this is where we have to tell it that we want to use it. So we're going to register in the root web config of this machine so that it's used for all kinds of monitoring. And I will actually, once we do it in IIS, I'll show you where there will be a new AppFabric section. We're going to initialize the store. This is the database to where we're going to keep it. Here, I think it's picked up my local machine, and if I click the drop down, I believe you're going to see the Rolodex. It's the only one that was on there. But what's cool is I can go in here and type a database name. Now the database name I'm going to create is the one just like I did at the lab at home. And since we're dealing here with the monitoring store, I just call it AppFabric Monitor. Okay, and when we get down here to the authentication, we're using SQL Express. So in the SQL Express, I'm sure we've got a user account. Ideally, we'll create one for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up SQL Server Manager. I'm going to go to Security. I'm going to go to Logins, and I'm going to create a new login. And it's going to be an SQL Server authentication. I'm going to call it AppFabric. And you could say I'm going to create one for AppFabric monitoring and one for persistence. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to call it AppFabric, and I'm going to give it a password of password $1, password with a capital P, password $1, and I'm going to uncheck enforce, because if you don't, no matter how many times you put this in the connection string, you'll never be able to get it to work because it wants you to reset it. And so I'm just going to go in here. There's no user mapping I want to do because the database isn't here yet. We'll do that on the back end. But so just know we have an AppFabric user with password $1, and I'm going to say OK. Now, I'm going to minimize my SQL Server Management. This is 2012, by the way. And I'm going to call it SQL Authentication. And I'm going to say AppFabric user and password $1. And I'm going to say OK. This will apply. Yes, I want to do that. Okay, so no one's perfect. I got a pop-up error. It said that it wasn't a valid store. Anyone know why? Two reasons. Probably the user we created, and I've got it imposed here, is AppFabric, and I put AppFabric user. So once again, proof that I don't remember everything. And the other thing we're going to do is temporarily we're going to go here to properties of this user, and we're going to look at him, and we're going to make sure he's a sysadmin, or she. It wasn't, and I checked it, so sysadmin. And we'll change that back, of course, once we get done with the install. So I'm going to hit OK, and we're going to try this again. This will apply, yes. Monitoring was initially registered, OK, and we're happy. Now we're going to do the same thing for the other one. Remember, we will change this back once we're done. So we're going to go here, and I know I haven't associated roles and things like that, but the persistence, we need to configure it with the SQL client, and it's going to be much the same. Nothing magic here. We're going to register in the root. We're going to put it here. We're going to type the database name. I like calling it AppFabric Persistence Store. Okay, and we're going to do SQL. We're going to use the same one, AppFabric, and our same password $1, and I'm going to say OK. And same thing should happen. We should get everything looks good to go, and away we go. And we're over 13 minutes. My apologies. It's just taking longer. So we've got that, and so now what we're going to do to verify it worked is we're going to go over here to our SQL Express, which is connected to it. We're just going to hit Databases, and we're going to go to View, and we're going to go to Refresh, and we're going to see him here, but them here, and we're going to go over here to Security, and we're going to go to our login, which is AppFabric. We're going to go to Properties, and we're going to go from Server Roles. We're going to uncheck sysadmin, and we're going to do a user mapping, and we're going to do the user mapping. You can already see it's already done it for us. That's new for 12. 8 and 10 didn't do that for me, but they're here, and their default schema is database owner, which gives them the ability to read, write, all kinds of other cool things. So I'm going to say OK. And so we know that's good. We're going to go back to our install. We're going to go next. And so now it says this page lets you set system level configuration. it says it's not part of a cluster, which we understand because of single install. So we're just going to go ahead and set the caching service configuration. We're going to do the same thing. The provider, this is where I said we have SQL or XML. We're going to select XML. I like XML because it's so much easier to bring up settings, and I'll kind of show you where they help us cheat down the road. So I'm going to say XML, and it says where is the share that we have this? Well, we haven't set one up, right? So we're going to go Start, and we're going to go to your computer, and we're going to go C drive, and I have a development folder in here, and I am going to just go in here, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this AppFabric shared config AppFabric cache shared config. I'm going to say that looks good to me. So I'm going to go up here to right click, and I'm going to go to share with, and I'm going to say specific people, and I'm going to, it says choose people on your network to share with, and I am just going to say how do I want to change it to a machine. For now, because of what it's given me here to do it, I hate putting everyone because that I think is everyone in the domain. So I'm not going to do that for now. I'm not going to set up the sharing. We'll come back to that. So we'll go next. I forgot to select it. It's all good. That's a new cluster. And it's warning about high availability. Look, AppFabric, if you're going to make a high availability, meaning you lose one server, the other ones continue, you have to use Server 2008 R2 Enterprise or higher. Windows 7 is obviously not that. So who cares? You know, this is a development machine. The high availability is something that you have to have a lot of CPU cores because you need 3 servers, even virtualized out, and a lot of, I say a lot of RAM. I mean, I did it with 2 gigabyte RAM machines. The problem is on this machine at work, I think I have 2 cores, so that's absolutely not possible to do it here. So I'm going to go next. It's going to apply the cache. These are the default ports. It may not hurt to do a screenshot here. I'm not going to because I know them, but that's okay. So, and it says successfully select each of the following rules and verify your system that they do not conflict. So I'm going to select them. This is going to punch a hole in our Windows firewall and let the system through. So make sure you do that. I'm going to hit next. And it says we're going to apply the cache service. Say OK. Now, why this is happening, this video, we will cut it off in just a second. This is the initial install. The third video will be configuration. Why it's doing what it's doing, it's important to note that AppFabric is administered through PowerShell 2.0. Someday we'll see a GUI, maybe something cool like they have for Couchbase, I think it's called, but not today for Microsoft. Okay, once again I cheated and used the pause button. That took about 5 minutes, so don't freak out if it takes a while. Everyone that works with me knows my computers at work aren't exactly the elite of the fleet, if you would, but they seem to get the job done. So we're going to go ahead and start the manager. And if I go in here now and I look, and if you haven't used IIS 7 before, I can do a video over that. I've used it quite a bit. I would say it's superior to IIS 6 in every way. First time I used it, I was like, oh my god, what are all these things? How's it work? Where's my files? We'll do that in a separate video, but what I do want you to know is, look up here, we've got the new AppFabric. The endpoints for WCF, again, beyond the scope of this discussion, but believe me, I have plenty I could teach and say on it on WCF. And so that just tells us pretty much that we're good to go. There's AppFabric dashboard for workflow and WCF services, and not for what we're going to do. So don't let that fool you. We'll do everything through PowerShell in the next segment. Now, don't think your AppFabric is running, because it's not yet. You've installed it, but really nothing's happening. So we'll come back on how to make that happen in video 3.